The hero has chosen their order, and their first missions await. Today we're continuing the core game story up to the events that occur on Claw Island. So hello, welcome to my channel. Here we'll learn the lore and stories of Tyria. As always, you can find the full lore on the official Guild Wars 2 wiki. Let's begin. The first missions. The choice had been made. The hero had chosen the order they would stand beside, but the decision was not the end of their journey. It was the beginning of a new responsibility. Joining an order meant more than wearing a new symbol or gaining new allies. It meant accepting a way of thinking. Each order had spent years preparing for the Elder Dragons, but preparation was not the same as victory. The dragons were still awakening, the Risen were still spreading, and every day that passed brought the world closer to a conflict it had never faced before. The hero now saw Tyria differently. Before, danger had often appeared in front of them. A creature attacking a village, an enemy threatening innocent people, a problem that needed an immediate answer. But the work of the orders revealed something much larger. Every crisis was connected. Every battle was part of a wider struggle. The Elder Dragons were not simply creating enemies, they were changing the balance of the world itself. The Vigil's Way. For those who joined the Vigil, the first lesson was simple. The Elder Dragons were not a problem that could be ignored. The Vigil had no interest in waiting for the perfect opportunity. They believed that preparation had to begin before the enemy arrived. Because once the dragons fully moved against Tyria, it would already be too late for those who had done nothing. Under the guidance of Forgal Kernson, the hero learned what the Vigil valued: discipline, commitment, sacrifice. Forgal was not interested in empty speeches about heroism. He understood the reality of war. People died, cities fell, victories came with costs. The Elder Dragons did not care about individual courage. They did not fear bravery, they did not negotiate. That meant Tyria needed people willing to stand against them, even when the odds were impossible. The Vigil's missions revealed the scale of the Risen threat. The undead servants of Zaitan were no ordinary enemies. They were not simply soldiers raised from the dead, they were a part of an army created by an Elder Dragon. They could emerge from unexpected places, they could overwhelm settlements, and they can turn the fallen into more soldiers for their master. The hero began to understand why the Vigil believed preparation mattered. A normal enemy could be defeated. An Elder Dragon required something far greater. The Priory's Way. The German Priory approached the same threat from another direction. Where the Vigil prepared soldiers, the Priory searched for answers. The hero's missions with the Priory revealed that the history of Tyria was far deeper than most people understood. Ancient civilizations had faced dangers that modern races had forgotten. Lost cultures had left behind warnings. Forgotten ruins contained knowledge that could determine whether future generations survived. With Sierran as a guide, the hero discovered that exploration was not simply about finding old objects. Every artifact carried a story. Every ruin represented a civilization that had once believed itself secure. And every lost civilization offered a lesson. The Priory's work was dangerous because history was not always buried safely. Many ancient places were abandoned for reasons. Some contained forgotten enemies, some held unstable magic, some revealed truths that powerful people had tried to hide. The Priory believed that the past was not truly gone. It was waiting. And if Tyria listened carefully enough, it might reveal how to survive the future. The Order of Whispers Way. The Order of Whispers operated differently. Its members did not always fight on open battlefields. They did not always receive recognition. Sometimes their greatest victories were the ones nobody knew had happened. With Thibaut Leftpaw as their guide, the hero learned that information could be as powerful as any weapon. The Order investigated threats before they became disasters. They uncovered secrets, they followed hidden movements, they operated in places where armies could not go. Thibaut showed the hero a different kind of bravery. He was not the loudest warrior, and he was not the strongest fighter, but he possessed something equally valuable: determination. Tybalt understood that protecting the world did not always mean standing at the front of a battlefield. Sometimes it meant walking into danger alone, so others never had to know it existed. The Order's methods reflected its long history. For centuries, its agents had operated quietly, especially in conflicts connected to Elona and other major threats to Tyria. They had learned that enemies often revealed their plans through secrets, and secrets were what the Order understood best. The threat beneath the surface. Although the three orders approached the Elder Dragons differently, their investigations began revealing the same terrifying reality. The dragons were not simply awakening, they were changing the world around them. The rise of Saitan had transformed Or into a land of undeath. The return of Jormag had corrupted the northern lands, and the influence of Primordus had driven ancient creatures and destroyers from the depths. The Elder Dragons were not distant myths, they were active forces reshaping Tyria. The heroes' missions also revealed something else. The greatest danger was not only the dragons themselves, it was the divisions between the people trying to stop them. The Vigil had soldiers, the Priory had knowledge, and the Order of Whispers had secrets, but none of them alone possessed everything needed for victory. At first, cooperation seemed difficult. The Orders had different traditions, different methods, different beliefs. The Vigil considered the Priory too slow. The Priory considered the Vigil too focused on force. The Order of Whispers kept information hidden by necessity, which often made others question their trustworthiness. But the Elder Dragons did not care about those disagreements. The world was moving toward a point where those differences would have to be overcome. The Shadow of Claw Island. By this point, the threat of Saitan could no longer be treated as something distant, because the Elder Dragon had already transformed Or into a kingdom of the dead, and his risen armies were beginning to reach farther beyond its shores. The three orders had spent years preparing for the Elder Dragons, but they were still fighting separately, and now Saitan was bringing the war closer to Lion's Arch. Claw Island was an important defensive fortress near the mouth of the Lion's Arch harbor, built to protect the city from attacks coming by sea. When the Risen launched a major assault on the island, the hero and their chosen order were sent to defend it alongside their mentor. At first, the defenders fought back, but the scale of the Risen attack soon became clear. The assault was led by Blightcast the Plaguebringer, a powerful dragon champion of Saitan, and the Order's forces were unable to hold the fortress. The hero and the surviving defenders were forced to retreat, while their mentor remained behind and was killed during the battle. For the hero, the loss was deeply personal. Tybalt Leftpaw, Siren or Forgal Kernson, depending on the order chosen, had been more than an officer. They had guided the hero through their first missions as a member of the order, and had fought beside them while they learned what it meant to face the Elder Dragons. Now they were gone, and Claw Island had fallen into the hands of the Risen. But the defeat did not end the fight. The surviving Order members regrouped, and Treherne became increasingly important to the effort to reclaim the island. The Orders gathered the resources and allies they needed for another assault, while the hero continued fighting alongside them. The Pale Tree was also consulted, and her vision of Or helped reveal the importance of Treherne's knowledge and the need to reclaim the ruined kingdom from Saitan. Eventually, the forces of the Order returned to Claw Island. This time, they were ready. The assault pushed through the Risen defenders and ultimately confronted Blightcast the Plaguebringer. The Dragon Champion was defeated, and the Risen were driven back, and Claw Island was finally reclaimed. Yet, the victory could not erase what had happened. The hero had seen how easily Saitan's forces could overwhelm one of the Orders, and the battle had shown that the Elder Dragon was capable of striking far beyond Or. The Vigil had soldiers, the German Priory had knowledge, and the Order of Whispers had intelligence, but the three orders were still separate organizations with different methods and priorities. Claw Island had not solved that problem. Instead, it made the problem impossible to ignore. The hero had begun their journey as an individual, then joined one of the orders because they believed that organization offered the best way to fight the Elder Dragons. Now they had witnessed the terrible cost of fighting a threat of Saitan's scale, and the survivors were beginning to understand that defeating an Elder Dragon would require something greater than any single order could provide. Claw Island had been reclaimed, but the cost had been terrible, and Saitan was still in war. The war was only beginning. This has been the third part of the core game story series. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next part we're diving into the forming of the Pact and the road to Ore, so stay tuned. With that said, thank you for watching this video. Please like and comment something you thought was interesting or something that I missed. Also subscribe to not miss future lore content in this format. Now, take care and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.